Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here, especially talking about something that I'm so passionate about. I would say in 2010, Angie Campbell from Department of Labor 166 was told about an initiative being sent out to the states where there were going to be 10 people or 10 entities selected to be trained in career pathways. Of course, she asked, where are the tribes? And of course, many times we're forgotten in those initiatives. So she pushed and pushed. So finally, we got selected to have one spot. So the Department of Labor representatives looked across the country and said, okay, which we want a tribe, and we want an Indian center to share the one spot. So luckily, we're very privileged to have been the tribe to be selected, and then Tucson Indian Center was the other one to participate. So we went to Washington, D.C., and were trained. And immediately, we could see how it was really going to benefit our people. Just the concepts, and what was really interesting was that this career pathways concept has been around forever, but has never been presented to any tribes as a possibility. So we were lucky and felt very honored to have being able to take on that type of responsibility. We had to organize a team of 10, which went back and forth to DC to be trained. We didn't know if there was going to be a grant to come out, but we were going to, because the initiative was so rich in what we needed, we decided we were going to do it regardless of whether a grant came out. In 2012, a grant did come out. And so we applied, and we got a $3 million grant to bring this concept into Gila River. So it's been a long time. Even 3 years, though, this has been quite a journey. What we did was we solved a few problems, or we could see that it could solve a few problems. The community members, one of the problems that we were seeing in workforce was that they weren't able to compete for the jobs that were in the community. We had disjointed training efforts across the reservation, meaning our enterprises were doing training, our HR was doing training, we were, as an employment and training department, we were doing training, and we were all disjointed. So a community member might take a training up at the resort or here or there, but they were not jointed. So employers basically would hire outside the community because they could not find the skills that they needed when the jobs became available. So pretty much it was a duplication of services and obviously a waste of the tribe's resources. So let's just first talk about what is Career Pathways. It is a sequence of educational coursework or training credentials that include the following components. So elements of Career Pathways, you'll see that it serves the skill needs of the employers primarily, and that's what's so significant about this, is that the employers are actually in charge of the full design of all the training and everything that goes on, and who the college is selected to provide that training, telling us as workforce what they need. There's a full range of educational options, GED, credentials, certificates, all of these, what they call them, stackable credentials, leading up to a degree, leading up to just a certification. And what that does is that allows someone who can't see being a doctor, when you tell a young person or an older person what it means to be a doctor, they can't even conceive of that. But if you give them little chunks of information or little certificates and a plan, they're able to see that for themselves. And I think what that does is creates hope within a community. Our youth have so many problems with, suicide, gangs, alcohol. But when the whole community is joined together, providing that type of hope that, yes, I can, my community cares about me, and yes, I can succeed in this community, and look, they're providing a way. So what we did, well, I have some other things that are there, but so what we did was we selected 5 what we call sectors, 5 industry sectors based on the need of our community. and we selected a medical sector because our community needed medical assistance. And one of the ways we went about selecting certain sectors, because as you know, tribal communities don't typically have statistics. We had to actually bring employers to the table and interview them. So we brought the medical people, and we found out that what they needed was medical assistance. We brought hospitality, and what we found was that they need culinary. And we brought the construction sector to us. We have recently, our department has recently brought tarot into it, because so now people who come to our department, they can do a tarot position or something that's more lifelong. Because in Gila River, we have 200 to 300 contractors that work in our community daily. We chose government sector because the fire apprenticeships within the government sector, because it was difficulty to find tribal members and have them succeed in becoming firefighters, because some of the academics are very intense. We also chose the small business sector, and that we chose that because Native Americans have been entrepreneurs forever, and we have somewhere between 24 and 30 entrepreneurs in the community. So we wanted to raise their skill level, if they wanted to stay local or like global, but we wanted to also entice newer members or newer people to become entrepreneurs. Also, our hopes are that we have them become vendors for the community, so that tribal businesses will use them instead of outside vendors. The three partners that are critical in Career Pathways is workforce, education, and the employers. And on I think in your handout, it does show the synergy. So job training and workforce, it actually convenes or coordinates the system. One of the things that we've learned is that employers are very busy. Their bottom line, they want to be involved, but their bottom line is that they're busy, so they don't have time to do this. So workforce, that's our job, is to convene for our community members all of the factors that come into play for becoming ready to have a job. So that's what we used our workforce people, was to convene a lot of the meetings, to back up and to follow up. Education partners, tribal education, paid for the credentials. I think we had something like, we had 62 courses were offered, 180 credits and 17 certifications were developed as a result of these 5 sectors. So the education, the other part of the education was the community colleges. So the individual sectors would choose the community college that best fit them, and they were basically interviewing them. They would come to the table, see what would best result in what they wanted in their workforce. They also would dictate to us, the sectors would tell us what type of life skills their people needed and what type of work readiness skills they needed. So each training program was designed especially for each sector. The employers led the work groups, and they designed and actually developed the curriculum that would lead to their industry specific credentials. So it was a labor of love between all of us. And what we learned was, when you bring partners together, they're more apt to change policy, and you have a system when people change policy, and it becomes very powerful. And one of the problems in the beginning was the common language, because Career Pathways has their own common language. Some resources that you could look up for Career Pathways would be clasp.org, and I forget what that acronym means. They have a lot of things on Career Pathways, also Jobs for the Future. So those, you can read the full verbatim of what Career Pathways is. So we shared a common goal. We got together in a formal way. Policies were easily changed. We were creating a new way of doing business. And few silos. The silo idea dropped slowly, because we all had the common goal of our community members. And what I saw was, we did, having the grant, we went to DC. We were able to meet with other states who were doing this for years, but nobody could get it together in terms of partnerships. And we're all sitting there, all of us that went there, thinking, what's the problem? But that is the one thing I think the Indian communities have over all the states in putting this together. The partnerships are there because we are one solid, individual, small community. And so they were asking us, how did we do it? Well, we have one set of we have a common goal. And we were getting together in a formal way, and we were sharing resources very easily because we all wanted the same thing, and that's to hire community members. On page 28 of the booklet, if you have it, that's kind of how our system started. And it shows you all the partners that we brought together. So you'll see some state partners, you'll see tribal education, you'll see our sectors, you'll see some of the support services. Also, as far as the state, you'll notice that states they're doing what they call sector strategy. Sector strategy is an overview. They're bringing employers together in groups and kind of doing the same thing. They're not creating the credentials so much, but Career Pathways goes deeper. It goes deeper into not only creating the sector strategy for tribes, but it also creates the credentials and the skill sets that are necessary to create the jobs or to get the jobs. In our area, we have created a one-stop where we have all of our workforce programs together. And I think that's very wise for communities to do that because you're less apt to have those silos. So in our department, we have TARO, we have NEW, which is a TANF recipient. We serve TANF recipients. We have WIOA Federal and WIOA State. We also have Career Pathways, AmeriCorps, Veterans Serving Veterans. And I want to get a voc rehab grant. But I see tribes because we're connected by a tribal WIB in Arizona. And I see other tribes, their workforce programs are scattered. They might have voc rehab over here, TARO over here, WIA over here. And it's easy to ignore WIA because it is a small program. But some of the work-based learning initiatives, some of the internships, work experience can be paid. So you're utilizing the resources from your WIA program to benefit. At Gila River, we also passed a policy that WIA participants, if they have been successful in their placement, and we usually place them for 3 months, and they're doing well, the employer can write a letter to hire them. They don't have to go through the selection process. So that has been a huge gain and a huge cost savings, I believe, to the community because now the training dollars are turning into community members being hired. We want to do that as well with our college students. They come out of college, they have no experience. So we're going to be calling it Pathways Interns. So they might start at a lesser scale, but they'll be able to compete the same as anyone else coming in. We also have DES coming in once a month, the Wagner-Pizer Act. The state RSA, individuals with disabilities serving our community once a month. And we also have dislocated workers, that's people that are laid off. The lessons learned for us have been you always need to ask the employers first, even within your HR, even within any tribal enterprise. Ask them, what do they need? Because we have, in hospitality, our education department was sending people off to Cordon Bleu and all these places. And what we learned from our community, our hospitality industry, was that they don't want them to be trained by anyone but themselves. They will still start out as a dishwasher. So they're disillusioned. They go off to school, a lot of money's been spent with them, on them, and they come back and they're starting as a dishwasher. But hospitality in particular would like to train them themselves. It's easier to share the other lesson. It's easier to share when all resources are all in one place, when all workforce programs are in one place. We don't work in silos where we're working together. People come into our department, they have a variety of things. We serve all community members. When you're doing something like this is pretty extensive, because the first year we just worked with just trying to get the partnerships together. We actually didn't do the participant system until the half of year 2 going into 3, because the system was not ready yet. We had a lot of research on community colleges and credentials and things like that. You need to pick your champions. Even, you want to go as high up as you can. You want the CEO, you want the director, but if they're not the ones who can champion it, if they're not the ones who get behind it, if they're not the ones that believe in it, it's going to go nowhere. Because we went through that for a while where nothing would happen in a sector until we got that one person on board that was the champion. And you need to map out a pathway. And so we're going to be starting to work with our incumbent workers, like the receptionist wants to be a director, so we're going to start to map that out. And it's very empowering to sit in front of a map and say, yes, I can get from here to there. And for communities to also be aware that all policies need to include everyone. You need to have a policy on, well, for what WIA, for example, but to serve all citizens. So offenders, those with no GED, your college graduates, individuals with disabilities, they need to be inclusive. So, look at your HR policies to see if there's policies to address all of those. I can't say enough. I think I'm almost done, or I should be done in 2 minutes. I think it's a hard road. It is hard, but it's very exciting because you're getting people together that have never been together before in this way. Before, we would serve people coming in individually, and now we're using cohorts, and that synergy, the wraparound services, really creates, we're together. We also were able to get some of our people certified being adjunct faculty. So our small business, I think we have about 3 or 4 of those. We're now there. So some of the classes are being taught in the community by community members. That's another thing. One of the other problems we had was with our EMT course. It was very, very highly academic, very hard, and a lot of our community members could not succeed. So we had an educational mentor that actually took the class with them to study how are they learning, what's the difficulty, what do we need to include in our programs to overcome this. And it's been very successful. We're going to our second cohort right now. Also, sometimes you think your college students are reading at a certain academic level, and they're really not. We had 68% of the people who came into our Career Pathways program had to have coaching. We called it coaching, tutoring, to bring them up to the level. It didn't take long, but to bring them up to the level where each sector could put them through the programs. Each sector also picked their own academic level in which they wanted their people to enter to be successful. So I could go on and on. I could go 2 more hours. But you have a toolkit. It's a lot about our journey. What we did, there's 6 elements to creating a pathways a system. In Brown, it's our particular way that we addressed each element. So have a read of it, and those of you who don't have a toolkit, hopefully I can get one to you. He'll be able to, and I'm available for questions afterwards. Thank you.